In this tutorial, we're going to go over creating a Sketchup background that'll have transparency to it. I'll open up my image and just kind of explain what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. I've got an image of a picket fence here, and I brought it in because I actually want to drop a picket fence into my Sketchup drawing, but I don't want to have to draw every single board for it and every single cross panel and all that stuff, and then go back and paint it. I can actually get around doing a lot of that by using the image and just knocking out the background and dropping it into SketchUp, and you'll see it just looks kind of like an actual fence. Okay, so in beginning this process, I just want to make sure I've got a decent image and that I can select the part of the image that I'm going to actually use for my fence. So I'm going to use my crop tool, but I'm actually going to use a kind of a special version of the crop tool. You click on it and make sure you've got the perspective crop tool. And that's just because most of the time when you have a photo of whatever it is your object's going to be, it might be a little bit out of perspective, and when we do this right, it's going to actually fix that problem. So you can see the fence kind of has a little bit of a slope going away from us. And that's going to be just fine when we get done. So I'm going to come in and actually I'm going to go back and grab my magnifying tool so I can zoom in a little bit closer here. Back to my perspective crop. Okay, so I want to just grab, I'm going to want this one post that's going to come in here and then some of the other slats, because we're going to use that as a repeating pattern. So I'm going to click one point there, and then I come up to the kind of top part of the post here. Oops, back up here because I got a little bad selection there. So click. And then I'm going to move up to the top, click one more time there, and then I'm going to move over to the side. And since I want this to repeat, I'm going to look to the right-hand side of where my post is, and I can see that I've got a spacer here and then the next board. So when I come over this way, I want to have a spacer on the other side, so when it butts up against my fence post, it'll line up. It's kind of hard to see exactly where to put it there, but that's okay. I'm going to be able to fix that in a moment. So come down to the bottom. I just want to make it kind of line up, be parallel. And looking at that, actually, it doesn't look like I have too much correction I need to do. I don't see. I think that'll be mostly okay. I want to make sure this is actually parallel too. So I'm going to drag this side up a little bit higher. Just kind of do a visual check on it and see if it looks like it's parallel. No, maybe it went too high there. Okay, so looks good. And then I'm going to, I see one more correction here. I've got a little bit too far over. If you're having any trouble with it, you can always go back and zoom in and get a little bit closer. So I'm going to do that and just get it where I need it to be. Oops, cancel that. So I can hold down my space bar, my modifier key, to bring up magnifying glass. And then when I let go, it'll go right back to my perspective crop tool. So just move this over. That looks good. Just want to make sure that I'm not bringing that next slat into it if I can avoid it. So I'll zoom back out. And if it looks like everything's in good shape, then I can just go up and click on the little check mark here, or I can hit enter, and that'll actually tell it to execute with the perspective crop tool. And you see when I did that, it actually brought in, it cropped out the image, and it actually brought up the overall perspective and squared it off with the edge of the frame. And you can kind of look at this and see if you've got everything you needed to get. If there's anything that's kind of weird with it or not working, you can undo and go back and fix it. It doesn't have to be completely perfect in this case. I just want to make sure it's kind of, in general, I'm not getting really weird areas. Okay, so looking at this, basically I want to just isolate this now, the fence part from the background. And I think the easiest way to usually do this, or at least to start trying, is where I've got if you have your magic wand showing up over here, you can change it over, or if you already have it up there, it's the quick selection tool. So when I have that selected here, I'm going to come back over at this point, and I'm going to just pick a background copy. So I'm just going to click on that background and dropping it on this icon. Hide my other the first background I had, and I'm going to double click on the background copy and call this what this tile is, and it's the fence. And enter it, it'll lock that in. Okay, so I'm going to make a selection here, and I'm actually going to select the fence area. So I click and drag with this quick selection tool. So make sure you don't touch the edge of the fence, or it'll start to grab the background. I'm just wanting to grab the fence area itself. So I pulled that over. It's looking like it's working pretty good. Sometimes it'll grab more, sometimes it won't grab quite enough, but that's okay. You just keep on working with it. As long as you got the plus, there's different. There's the plus, and then minus, and then just a regular brush tool in there for this selection when you're in the quick selection tool. And that'll just give you areas you can subtract from or add to. You can always kind of edit that selection. So add to this a little bit more. And it looks like it's grabbing that pretty well. Let's see, I see a little bit of an area up here that it could be fixed. Maybe, yeah, that looks like that worked pretty well. And I'm actually going to grab one of these areas in here just to demonstrate what you do to get rid of it if you grab too much. So selecting that spot right there. So looking at that, that's not quite right because we've got an area that's not part of the fence selected. And so in this kind of a case, I would actually want to come over to my quick selection tool with a minus sign above it up here. Back over, and I want to make sure that I can make it small enough so it's only going to fit outside of the fence area. And if I've got it kind of set where I need to be there, then I'm just going to click and drag over that area. Oops, and I made a mistake here. I'm still on my plus tool. I'll move back over to that and make sure I do have that minus quick selection tool. Okay, there we go. So clicking and dragging up through this area here. And then I can just kind of clean that area up. That way we've just got the fence now. Okay, so if that looks pretty good, you can go ahead and I'm going to zoom back out. I actually want to see all the pixels, so I'll go to View, Fit on Screen. And make sure we're just looking at everything here. And then I can go, since I've got selection in there, I'm still on my layer, fenced layer here. I'll go to Layer, Layer Mask, and we have fence selected, and I want to show that. So we're going to say Reveal Selection. And that should get rid of all the background, and I should be seeing just the fence at that point. Sometimes you might see a little bit of a halo of your background in there. If that's the case, then you can fix that by just going to do an undo. Go back to where this was before, and then you can go to Select, Modify, and Contract. And if you look at this area right here, before it had a little bit of a halo from it from where we were trying to fix that the brush going in the wrong spot. And you'll see it'll get a little bit better when I do this. So we're going to contract the pixels in by about, you can do like 1 or 2 maybe the most pixels. Let's do 1. And it'll move my selection in a little bit further. And then if I do my layer mask, layer mask, and again, reveal my selection. So that got rid of a lot of that kind of halo area and just brought that selection in a little bit closer. Okay, and you can test what it looks like if you want to create another layer and move that layer down below your fence or whatever layer you have there, the object you're masking out. Once you have that moved down, what I want to do is I want to create a color that's going to contrast with my fence. So I can double click on my color palette here, and we'll just make one that's dark black or blue or whatever. Not too important. And then once I've got that selected, I can go to Edit, Fill, and select that color that's going to contrast as my foreground color. Or if you want to just use black, you can do that. Or if you need white, you can have that option in here too. So I'm going to use that foreground color that I just created. And so that just gives me a chance to kind of preview how this fence is going to look If there's anything else I want to get rid of, it makes it a little bit more obvious for me. Um, in this case, I might want to fix the bottom of the fence here by using my clone stamp tool. Always make sure you're on the right layer, so click on your top layer for your whichever object you're masking out. And so in this case, if I wanted to actually fix that area down there and just kind of, make it a little bit lighter, like it's supposed to be on the top, I could do that real quick. So anyway, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on that for another tutorial. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I've got the fence all marked out. I've tested against the background. And really, at this point, I can actually kind of back up one more step because I've already finished most of the work. So I'm going to get rid of that layer that we were using to contrast with the background. And when I get to this point here, I've got my fence. And now, if I want to test this before I actually save it out, what I can do is I'll come up to my fence layer up here and make a copy of that. And then what I want to do is go make my canvas a little bit larger so I can see the two side by side. So I'll go to Image, Canvas Size. I want to make the width change this to percentage instead of inches. And then I'm going to say it's going to be 200%, so we'll put two tiles side by side. Okay, that gives us more room. Now, whenever you're moving stuff, dragging stuff around in this, you want to make sure on the layer, you want to make sure that the brackets are showing up around the little icon on the left-hand side, not the little icon on the right-hand side. That's just the mask. So I'm going to move one of them to the left. Holding my Shift key will keep it lined up with the other one. So it's the edge of the photo frame. So I'll come down and select my next layer here and Shift-click, drag that over. I haven't quite zoomed out far enough yet, but that's okay. I'm going to keep on dragging this over. Okay, went a little past it, so now I can just bring it back until it snaps in. Click. And now I'm just going to zoom out to fit on screen. Now I'm looking at kind of the whole seam area of my fence. I just want to make sure that everything's coming in at kind of a regular pattern. So if I continue to do this, I'm not going to have like a big gap in between here or too little of a gap. I want to make sure it's kind of matching up. And this looks like it's working very well. So I've tested it. It looks pretty good. You can always put your another background layer in there and fill it if you're having a hard time seeing this, but I've got a pretty good idea that this is going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of one of these layers, the fence copy. I got rid of that. I want to move my fence, make sure it's back into the center of my photo frame here area. Okay, so I've got this ready. All I need to do really at this point is just get rid of all this extra background. So I'll go back and say Image, Trim. Any of these options should work fine with this image. Select OK, and it's going to go through and just find all that extra image and just get rid of it. Then from here, what I can do, I've basically done in Photoshop. I would save out a working file as a PSD if I needed to come back and edit it. So I'll go to File, Save As, and the PSD is a Photoshop format. So I'll click on that, and that would be Fence PSD. I won't go ahead and save this at this point. I'll switch over and show how you would actually bring this in, how you save it to bring it into SketchUp. The file format we're looking at in this case is going to be different than the other ones. This format is going to be a PNG file. It's a PNG file. And the reason we use a PNG file is because JPEGs will always make your photo, basically it's going to have pixel color everywhere. So this background area in here would go to white. And that wouldn't work very well because we have, we have white on white. We wouldn't have transparency. PNGs allow us to keep this transparent area. And they're one of the few file formats that are a flat file format that has that. So coming back over here, I've got my PNG file. I just save that out to my desktop. Because with this little dialog for options, I usually just say no compression and no interlace. Click OK, and it'll give you your PNG file. That can then be imported into SketchUp, and you'll see when it comes in. You won't be able to see any of the background of the fence. You'll just be able to see whatever's actually behind it. And as it tiles across, it'll just line up as it goes. Okay, well that concludes this tutorial.